Why do we fall? It's a question that burns in the mind every time life knocks us down, every time the weight of failure feels unbearable. Some people believe falling is the end, a signal to quit, a stamp that says, not good enough. But I want to tell you something, falling is not the end. It is the beginning. Falling reveals our humanity in a way that nothing else can. It strips away the illusion of perfection and reminds us that to be alive is to stumble, to make mistakes, to face moments of weakness and imperfection. When you fall, it is not a signal that you are a failure, but proof that you are reaching, striving, and moving forward. Only those who attempt nothing, risk nothing, and stretch for nothing never fall. But a life without falling is not a life lived at all. It is a life spent standing still. Falling, then, is not the enemy. It is the evidence that you dared to step into the arena of growth. When you trip, when you stumble, when you collapse under the weight of your own effort, it means you were engaged in the fight. It means you believed something was possible enough to try. Falling is the human condition, no one escapes it. Every great leader, every innovator, every hero has scars from hitting the ground. And those scars are not signs of shame, they are marks of courage. They show that you chose the path of action instead of the safety of doing nothing. Falling has a way of exposing us to ourselves. In those moments on the ground, we see our vulnerability, our limits, and our pride stripped away. It's humbling. It hurts. But humility is not weakness. It is clarity. Falling forces us to confront the fact that we are not invincible, but it also shows us that we are resilient. Because even though we are not unbreakable, we are repairable. We can be bent, bruised, even shattered, and still rise again. That ability to stand back up, to refuse to stay on the ground, is what makes us human at our core. Think of a child learning to walk. They do not master balance in a single day. They fall hundreds of times. Their knees bruise, their little hands reach out for support, and their faces sometimes hit the floor. But no one looks at that child and says, "You are a failure." We look and say, "You are learning." The falling is necessary because it strengthens the legs, it trains the balance, and it teaches persistence. Falling is part of the growth, not the opposite of it. As adults, we forget this simple truth. When we fall, we are quick to label ourselves as failures, when in reality, we are only repeating the process that has always been the foundation of learning. To fall is to be human, but to rise is to embrace that humanity with strength. Every fall is a mirror, showing us how badly we want something. If you fall and decide not to get up, perhaps the dream wasn't worth it. But if you fall and find yourself crawling, stumbling, and eventually standing back up again, then the fall becomes a testimony that your desire, your vision, and your will to fight are stronger than the ground that tried to hold you. Falling reveals the passion inside of you. It draws out the question, how much do you really want it? And beyond passion, falling reveals empathy. When you have fallen, when you have felt the sting of failure and disappointment, you no longer look at others with judgment when they stumble. Instead, you look with compassion because you know how heavy it feels. Falling breaks the pride that separates us and builds the bridge of understanding that connects us. Our humanity is not in our perfection, but in our shared experience of struggle. So when you fall, do not curse the ground. Do not call yourself weak. Do not believe the lie that you are finished. Instead, recognize that this fall is part of your story, that it is proof you are alive and engaged. The dust on your hands, the bruise on your knees, the ache in your spirit, these are signs that you dared to try, that you pushed yourself beyond comfort. Falling is not failure. Failure is refusing to rise again. Your humanity is revealed not in how often you stumble, but in how fiercely you rise. The fall is not your identity, it is your teacher. The bruise is not your defeat, it is your reminder that you are still in the fight. And the ground is not your final resting place, it is only the starting point of your next rise. To fall is to be human. To rise is to embrace the fullness of life. And that is where greatness begins. Every fall carries a lesson, and often it is a lesson that success could never teach us. Success can be sweet, it can fill us with confidence, and it can give us recognition, but it rarely forces us to stop and reflect. Falling, on the other hand, demands attention. When you hit the ground, you cannot ignore the impact. You feel it in your bones, in your heart, and in your pride. And in that painful moment, life whispers truths that you could never learn standing tall. The ground becomes the teacher, and the lesson it offers is often the one that shapes your destiny. When we succeed, we celebrate. We rarely ask, why? When we fail, we cannot avoid the question. Falling forces us to examine our steps, what choices led us here, what weaknesses we ignored, what mistakes we repeated. The ground has no sympathy. It simply reflects back the reality of our actions. And though it may feel harsh, it is also deeply honest. In that honesty, we find wisdom. We realize that arrogance blinds us, that shortcuts deceive us, and that growth requires humility. Success can make us careless, but failure sharpens our vision. The lessons of falling are not only about what went wrong, but about what can be made right. Each time you stumble, you discover where the cracks in your foundation lie. Perhaps you lacked preparation. Perhaps you underestimated the challenge. Perhaps you overestimated your own strength. Whatever the reason, the fall exposes the weakness, and in that exposure lies the opportunity to rebuild stronger. The ground does not humiliate you, it educates you. It says, here is where you must pay attention. Here is where you must grow. Consider how many of life's most important breakthroughs came after a fall. The inventor who failed 1,000 times before finally creating something revolutionary. The athlete who missed countless shots before mastering their craft. The leader who faced rejection after rejection before finally breaking through. What gave them greatness was not their victories. It was the wisdom collected from their defeats. Success gave them the spotlight, but falling gave them the substance to stand in it. The ground also teaches us resilience. Falling hurts, but it reminds us that pain is not permanent. The sting fades, the wound heals, and the memory becomes a story of strength. The ground says, yes, you were knocked down, but look, you're still breathing, you're still alive. You still have another chance. That reminder is priceless. It tells us that life is not about avoiding falls, but about learning how to land, how to recover, and how to rise stronger than before. Falling also teaches humility, and humility is one of the most valuable lessons of all. When you taste defeat, you remember that you are not invincible. You see the value of patience, the importance of preparation, and the truth that no one is above growth. Humility keeps you grounded, and ironically, it is the ground itself that teaches it best. Those who have never fallen may be arrogant, but those who have faced the dust carry a quiet strength that cannot be shaken. And beyond humility, the ground teaches perspective. When you are down, you see the world differently. You notice who reaches out to help you up and who walks away. You discover what truly matters, not the applause or the image of perfection, but the strength to continue when no one is clapping. From the ground, you see that failure is not the opposite of success, but a part of it. Every great story includes moments of stumbling, and those moments often define the hero more than the victories ever could. So do not despise the fall. Do not treat it as an enemy or a shameful secret. Instead, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I grow from this? What lesson am I carrying with me as I rise again? Because the truth is, you will not remember every success in your life, but you will remember the lessons that came from your failures. Those are the turning points, the defining chapters, the wisdom that shapes your future. Every fall carries a lesson, and if you have the courage to listen, the humility to learn, and the determination to rise, then every fall becomes a stepping stone toward a greater version of yourself. Success may decorate your life with trophies, but the ground gives you the wisdom to know what they truly mean. In the end, it is not how often you fall that matters, but how deeply you learn from each one, because those lessons are the true keys to growth, strength, and greatness. Strength is built in rising again, because the act of getting back up after you've been knocked down is what truly defines who you are. Falling doesn't define you, it simply reveals the battle you are in. Rising, however, declares to the world, and more importantly to yourself, that you refuse to be defeated. Every time you rise after a fall, you are not the same person who went down. You come back stronger, wiser, more resilient. The bruises may still hurt, but within them is the proof that you survived what tried to break you. That survival is the soil where strength takes root. Anyone can stand tall when life is easy, when doors open smoothly, and when applause surrounds them. But real strength is forged in silence, in pain, and in those private moments when you have to decide whether to stay on the ground or fight your way back up. Rising again is the decision to keep moving even when everything inside of you screams to quit. It is the choice to see beyond the pain of the moment and believe that your future is still worth fighting for. That choice is where strength is born. Every story of greatness is a story of rising. Athletes who lose championships but return hungrier than ever. Entrepreneurs who face bankruptcy but rebuild into success. Students who fail exams but study harder until they excel. Leaders who stumble, make mistakes, and yet rise to guide others with humility. What sets them apart is not that they never fell, it's that they mastered the art of standing up again. Strength is not measured by how high you soar, but by how many times you can rise after hitting the ground. Rising again does more than rebuild your momentum. It reshapes your identity. When you rise, you prove to yourself that you are not fragile, that you are not defined by one moment of defeat. You stop identifying yourself as a victim of your fall and start embracing the truth that you are a fighter, a survivor, someone who cannot be held down. That new identity shifts everything. It changes the way you face future challenges because you no longer fear the ground. You know you can rise from it. There is a quiet power in rising that others notice too. People may not always see your fall, but they will always see your comeback. Your resilience becomes a light to others who are struggling, a living example that it is possible to get up again, no matter how hard you've been hit. When you rise, you don't just build your own strength, you give others the courage to rise too. Your story becomes a testimony that failure is not final, and that strength is not built in avoiding the fall, but in enduring it. Rising again also trains perseverance. The first time you fall, it feels like the end of the world. But the more you rise, the more you realize that falling is never final. Each rise makes you quicker to recover, less afraid of failing again, and more determined to keep pressing forward. The ground loses its power to paralyze you because you know you have the power to rise from it. That perseverance becomes unstoppable momentum, carrying you through obstacles that once would have crushed you. And perhaps most importantly, rising after the fall builds gratitude. When you've been on the ground, you learn to appreciate the moments when you can stand tall. You no longer take strength, peace, or progress for granted. Every step feels like a victory because you know how it feels to lose your footing. That gratitude fuels your spirit and keeps you humble, reminding you that your strength is not just in the rise, but in the awareness of what it took to get there. Falling is inevitable, but staying down is optional. Falling does not define your destiny. Rising does. Every time you push yourself back onto your feet, every time you wipe the dust from your hands and keep moving forward, you are building a strength that no one can take from you. Life may knock you down again and again, but if you choose to rise, then you are undefeated. Because true strength is not found in never falling. It is found in rising every single time you do. Failure redirects us toward purpose, and the sooner we understand this truth, the sooner we stop seeing every setback as punishment and begin to see it as preparation. Life has a way of closing doors we thought we needed, stripping away opportunities we were sure were right for us, bringing us face down with disappointment. In the moment, failure feels heavy, humiliating, and final. But in reality, it is often life's way of guiding us back to the path we were meant to walk all along. What looks like rejection is sometimes protection. What feels like punishment is often preparation. Failure is not the end of the story. It is a redirection that brings you closer to your true purpose. Think about how many times you chased something you thought was the answer, only to find it slipping through your fingers. Maybe it was a career, a relationship, a dream that seemed perfect on the surface. You gave it everything, but still, it didn't work out. At first, you asked, why me? You thought the fall was proof you weren't good enough. But later, often years later, you look back and realize that if that door had stayed open, you would have missed out on the one that truly mattered. The so-called failure wasn't punishment at all. It was preparation for what was really waiting for you. Failure has a way of humbling us, and humility clears our vision. When everything goes our way, we assume our plan is flawless. But when we stumble, we are forced to reevaluate, to reflect, and ask harder questions. Sometimes failure is the only thing strong enough to break our pride and open our eyes to the bigger picture. It shakes us awake, showing us that we were climbing the wrong mountain, chasing the wrong goal, or measuring success by the wrong standard. Without the failure, we might have wasted years of energy walking in circles, never discovering the purpose we were created for. Setbacks are often divine redirections. When life says no, it is rarely a period. It is usually a comma. It means, not here, not now, not this way. It means there is something better, something higher, something more aligned with who you are meant to be. Failure pushes us out of comfort zones we would have clung to forever, and it forces us to adapt, to innovate, to seek new doors. And in that seeking, we often find the door that actually leads to fulfillment. Failure also equips us with tools we will need later. Every disappointment teaches patience. Every rejection teaches resilience. Every closed door strengthens your creativity and resourcefulness. You may not see it in the moment, but those very skills forged in failure are the ones that empower you when the right opportunity finally arrives. Without the setback, you would not have the wisdom or strength to handle the breakthrough. Consider the lives of those who achieved greatness. Their stories are filled with failure after failure. They were told no, they were pushed aside, they were knocked down. But each time, the failure reshaped them, redirected them, and prepared them for what was next. The failure didn't erase their purpose, it refined it. It aligned them with the calling they were meant to fulfill. Failure also teaches us that purpose is not always about what we want, but about what we are meant for. Sometimes we chase things out of ego, fear, or comparison. Failure tears those false motivations down and reveals what truly matters. When you stop running after what fails you and start paying attention to what keeps calling you back even after the failure, you find your true purpose. That calling survives every fall, every rejection, every setback. It refuses to die because it was planted deeper than your circumstances. So when you fail, don't see it as life punishing you. See it as life preparing you. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Where is this redirecting me? Trust that the closed doors are guiding you to the right ones. And most importantly, know that failure is not final. It is formative. It is shaping you into someone capable of carrying the purpose you were designed for. Failure is not about loss. It is about alignment. It is not about humiliation. It is about preparation. It does not strip you of your purpose, it steers you into it. The setback you are facing right now may feel unbearable, but one day you will look back and see that was the very thing that positioned you for the breakthrough you were waiting for. Failure does not end your story. It simply redirects you to the chapter that was always meant to be yours. Courage grows in the dust, and it is in those low places where your true character is sharpened. Every time you hit the ground, you face a decision: stay down and surrender, or rise again and fight. That choice, repeated again and again through life's challenges, becomes the soil where courage takes root. It is not in the moments of applause or comfort that courage is born, but in the silence, in the dust, when no one is watching and your spirit whispers, "Get up." Each rise shapes you, carving strength into your character and boldness into your soul. Falling has a way of humbling us. It strips away pride and illusions of control. When you find yourself in the dust, you realize how fragile you are, how easily things can collapse, how unpredictable life can be. And yet, it is in this fragile state that something powerful begins to emerge. Because when everything has been taken from you, and you still choose to rise, that is courage in its purest form. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Every rise from the dust makes you braver, teaching you that survival is possible and victory is within reach. Each fall also reveals the strength of your character. Words are easy when life is smooth, but character is tested when you are face down in the dirt. Do you give up? Do you blame others? Or do you gather yourself, wipe the dust from your face, and take another step forward? Each time you rise, you prove something to yourself. You are not defined by the fall, but by the fight that still burns within you. This fight strengthens your character, chiseling away weakness, sharpening resilience, and building a backbone that no storm can break. Courage in the dust is different from the confidence you show when you're on the mountaintop. Confidence at the top is celebrated by others, but courage in the dust is seen by no one but you. And yet, that hidden courage is what transforms you. Every time you rise when no one applauds, you learn that your strength does not come from validation, but from conviction. You are no longer motivated by the opinions of others, but by the fire of determination within. That kind of courage cannot be shaken because it is not built on applause. It is built on grit. The dust also teaches you persistence. Life rarely changes in a single rise. Sometimes you have to get up over and over again, each time feeling the ache of disappointment, each time battling the weight of doubt. But with every rise, the dust loses its grip on you. What once felt like an impossible burden begins to feel like training. And in this training, your courage grows. You realize that no matter how many times you fall, you can rise again. That realization frees you from fear, because you know the dust cannot keep you down. Courage born in the dust is also contagious. Others may not see your first fall, but they will see your comeback. Your resilience becomes an unspoken message to everyone around you. If I can rise, so can you. Your courage breathes life into others who feel stuck in their own dust. It shows them that courage is not about avoiding the fall, but about refusing to remain in it. And when your courage lifts someone else, your impact multiplies far beyond your own life. Finally, courage in the dust builds faith in yourself. Each rise whispers a truth that becomes louder with every attempt. You are stronger than you think. The dust that was meant to bury you becomes the very place that proves your resilience. And as courage grows, you begin to see that even the falls have a purpose. They are sharpening you, strengthening you, and molding you into someone unstoppable. So the next time you find yourself in the dust, do not despair. Do not see it as the end. See it as the proving ground where your courage is being forged. Every rise is another stroke shaping the masterpiece of your character. Every step forward is another layer of courage added to your spirit. And one day, you will look back at the dust and realize it was not your enemy, it was your teacher. For courage does not grow in comfort. It grows in the dust, in the fight, in the relentless choice to rise again. Falling is the path to greatness, because no one who has ever reached the top got there without first enduring the bottom. We often look at people who stand tall, celebrated, and successful, and we imagine their journey as a steady climb upward. But if you pull back the curtain on every great story, you will see moments of struggle, of loss, of failure, of pain. The top is never reached without the weight of the bottom pressing against you first. Falling humbles you, tests you, and shapes you into someone capable of carrying the weight of greatness. Without those falls, the mountaintop would crush you, because you would arrive unprepared. Greatness is not built in the easy seasons. Comfort rarely produces champions. It is the adversity of the fall, the sting of disappointment, the long nights of doubt, that carve depth and strength into your character. Falling strips away arrogance, exposing the truth of who you are. It reminds you that talent alone is not enough, that luck cannot sustain you, and that determination is the true currency of greatness. Every time you land at the bottom, you are given a chance to rebuild, and each rebuild makes you stronger than before. The bottom also teaches perspective. When you've been face down in the dust, you see the world differently when you rise again. You know what it means to be overlooked, to be doubted, to be rejected. And because of that, when success finally comes, you hold it with gratitude instead of entitlement. Greatness is not just about reaching the top. It is about the depth of character you bring with you when you get there. Falling ensures that your victories are not hollow, but filled with the wisdom and humility that only struggle can teach. Falling also forces you to discover what you truly want. When everything collapses, the noise fades, and only what really matters remains. The distractions, the shallow pursuits, the false goals, they crumble under the weight of failure. What survives is the dream that refuses to die, the calling that burns even in the dust. That is the dream worth chasing, the purpose worth enduring for. Falling clarifies what is real, and that clarity points you toward the greatness that was meant for you, not the one you imagined for yourself. The bottom is also where resilience is born. No one becomes strong by avoiding struggle. Muscles are built by resistance. Character is built by adversity, and greatness is built by falls. The more times you fall and rise again, the more unshakable you become. Greatness is not about never stumbling. It is about refusing to let the stumble define you. The champions of life are not those who never fell, but those who kept rising, each time with more determination, more grit, and more faith. And it is in falling that courage finds its voice. Standing at the top looks impressive, but it is not nearly as courageous as standing back up when you've been knocked down. The courage to rise from failure, to try again after rejection, to believe again after disappointment, that is the courage that leads to greatness. Without the fall, there is no stage to prove that kind of strength. Greatness demands courage, and courage is born in the dust. Finally, falling connects you to others. No one is inspired by a perfect story. People are moved by honesty, by vulnerability, by resilience. When you share not just your victories, but also your failures, you give others permission to rise from their own. Your falls become part of a greater purpose, lifting more than just yourself. And that is the true measure of greatness. Not how high you climb for your own sake, but how your journey inspires others to climb as well. So do not despise the bottom. Do not let the fall convince you that greatness has passed you by. Instead, see it for what it is, a necessary chapter in your story, a refining fire, a foundation being laid. The bottom is not the end, it is the beginning. And when you rise from it, you carry with you the strength, the humility, the courage, and the vision that only falling can give. No one reaches the top without first enduring the bottom. Falling is not the enemy of greatness, it is its teacher. And if you dare to rise every time you fall, one day you will look back and realize that the very ground that tried to break you was the same ground that built you. When you look back at every stumble, every setback, every disappointment, you begin to see the truth. Falling was never the end. It was always the beginning. Falling revealed your humanity. It taught you lessons no success ever could. It built your strength in rising again. It redirected you toward your true purpose. It sharpened your courage in the dust. And it became the very path that leads to greatness. The ground you feared was never your grave. It was your training ground. Every fall stripped away what was shallow and false. And every rise built resilience, wisdom, and power into your character. Falling has never defined you. What defines you is that you chose to rise, again and again, stronger each time, braver each time, wiser each time. So if you find yourself on the ground today, don't see it as the end. See it as preparation. See it as a sign that greatness is being forged within you. Because no one reaches the top without first enduring the bottom. The dust beneath your feet is the same dust that will one day bear witness to your rise. And when you rise, you will not only stand taller, you will inspire others who are still on the ground. Your story will remind them that falling is not failure, that failure is not final, and that the path to greatness has always been paved by those who had the courage to rise again.